y'all, welcome back to Katie on the Flip Side. We are back with this series, and like I told you from the beginning, I'm not always going to be in the fanciest setting. I like this because I don't feel the pressure to have everything set up and the light's not flickering. I'm so sorry about the flickering light last week. It's something to do with the lights in our bedroom and how they work with the camera. So I will try to stay out of that room until I get that situation figured out. But as I was reading through the comments, I saw a lot of people asking questions about what do you do when somebody won't keep a boundary, or they won't allow you to have a boundary, or you're not able to have a boundary. And that is something I wanted to address because that is your decision and your decision only. So do you ever find yourself feeling like other people's problems are your responsibility? I think a lot of people said that they were kind of feeling that way, or that they felt that there was an obligation to make somebody else's life go well, or make somebody else's life perfect, or solve somebody's problems. Like I talked about last week too, a lot of this has to do with guilt. People feeling guilty for setting boundaries, guilty for telling other people no. We spent some time on the live stream on Sunday night talking about the situation with kids. That's one thing, but there's definitely some other stuff going on when you're talking about your relationship with other adults, whether it be your spouse, your mom, your mother-in-law, your sister, your brother, your aunt and uncle, your whoever it may be, your best friend down the street. I just want to go ahead and remind you guys, and remind myself, that we are not required to take on more than we can handle, physically, emotionally, mentally, all of the above. That is not a requirement for existing in life or being considered a good person. Yes, we should help each other. Yes, we should help other people and come to people's aid when they ask for it. But we are not responsible for interpreting other people's feelings. I find myself a lot of times saying, oh, I need to do this because if I don't, then he's gonna feel bad. Or if I don't make sure that I say this certain way, or if I don't skip this activity that I wanna do, then they're gonna feel bad. Well, that's me a lot of times projecting my feelings onto somebody else, and maybe they aren't feeling that way, and that's not my place to interpret that. If somebody else has a problem with keeping their boundaries or speaking up for themselves in a situation that you have no idea about, then that's not necessarily your problem. Based on the comments, based on things I've heard from other people, we are sometimes overextending ourselves, exhausting ourselves, wearing ourselves out because we are trying to change other people's feelings, or we're trying to change other people's behaviors, or change the way they live, or change something about somebody else. And that is not something we can do. When we are able to come to the realization that the only person's feelings, behaviors, emotions, life we can change is our own, it changes our whole perspective and gives a whole different outlook on the ability to set boundaries, the boundaries we should set, and how we need to take care of ourselves. We have to decide what we will and will not allow in our lives, whether that be the way somebody treats us, whether that be the things people are expecting of us to do. I saw a lot of comments about people being over expected to take care of somebody else's children, or take care of something for their husband or for a friend, when it's something that that person could and should be able to do themselves. Now, I'm not talking about a situation where somebody has an injury or has some reason that they can't take care of something for themselves. I'm talking about the everyday life of you as a person and me as a person trying to overcompensate for somebody else just because we feel like we should do something for them that they are perfectly capable of doing themselves. We have the right to decide what our environment will be like and what our limits will be. We have the right to make our own boundaries and enforce those boundaries. We are the only ones who can know our limits for a fact and how they make us feel. If there is somebody who's trying to tell you what your limits should be, what your emotions should be, what you should feel, what you shouldn't feel, that's the first red flag that there's a problem. If somebody's trying to tell you that shouldn't make you sad, that shouldn't make you unhappy, but you know that you're feeling sad and unhappy, you can't, no, just no. So the same goes the other way. We can't be responsible for changing somebody else's emotions, thoughts, feelings, happiness ourselves. Why would we think that we would be the ones that would need to be in charge of changing somebody's feelings or thoughts or emotions or happiness? Why would we think we should be the ones to say, well, I have to let them come over to my house. I have to let the kids in my closet because otherwise they'd be sad. Well, that's not our decision to make on how they feel, just as it's nobody else's decision on how we feel. The only thing that we can truly know is how we feel ourselves. And then we have to embrace those feelings, take charge of those feelings, put limits on who is going to be allowed in the space that would affect those feelings, and set our boundaries, stick to them, be consistent, and know that if we do not set our boundaries, if we're not consistent, if we're letting our resentment and our bitterness build because of something that someone else is doing, then we are not going to be able to even be who we need to be for that person, even when we are functioning within reasonable, normal limits of a relationship with somebody. Overcoming this thought pattern that we are responsible for somebody else's happiness or for somebody else's behavior is a really hard thought pattern to change. It's a really hard thing to overcome, and it takes some work if you have been in this pattern of doing this for a long time in your life. I have been learning so much about myself and my thought patterns and the way that I process different things in my life, the way I expect my environment and my behavior and other people's behavior to affect each other over the past several months, really over the past year, I guess. But once I've kind of accepted that I can only be in charge of my own self, my own emotions, my own feelings, and not letting every single thing I do depend on whether or not it's going to either make somebody else happy or fulfill a need for somebody else or change somebody's behavior, it has been incredibly freeing to be able to live for the purpose of myself and my own environment, if that sounds like it makes any sense at all. I almost feel like it kind of sounds like I'm trying to say don't care about anybody but yourself, and that's not exactly what I mean. I think most likely for the average person, you might have a better understanding of like doing something because you want to and not only because you think it will make somebody else happy, if that makes sense. But there are a lot of people who literally a lot of their life and their behaviors and their emotions and all of the things have been revolving around trying to make other people happy. And I think some of that goes deeper than even just the guilt. I actually got so fired up thinking about this topic and this kind of realization the other night that I could hardly go to sleep because I was like writing down things I wanted to say, thinking about things I wanted to say, and just wanting to help those of you who are struggling with this realize that you can change the way that you feel about how you're being treated or what your emotional state is or what the environment is like that you live in. So many of the comments that I read just broke my heart. Like, you don't have to do the thing that you're leaving a comment saying that you feel like you have to do. Don't get me wrong. I love reading your comments. I want y'all to leave those comments because I feel like that's the way that we can best help each other, is when we see those things and we see the things that other people say, because it gives us a different perspective. So please read through the comments on these videos. Feel free to leave comments for each other and talk to each other. You might see somebody who's gone through a situation that you've also gone through. As somebody who is a people pleaser to an extent, wants to follow all the rules, wants to do everything right, never wants anybody to feel uncomfortable. One realization that helps with changing your thought patterns and your behavior patterns is realizing that you're actually doing more damage to somebody by continuing to do too much for them, or accept too much abuse from them, or accept too much guilt from them, or whatever the case may be. Sacrificing your own emotional health, your own physical health, your own exhaustion level just because you feel like you need to do something to make somebody else happy is not going to do you any benefit at all, and it's going to actually make you less able to help other people. Once you release yourself from that responsibility in your mind, you are better able to do things for people because you want to, not because you feel guilty. Not because you feel like you have to, and because you feel like you're going to be a bad person if you don't. You actually start to feel the feelings of doing things for people because you want to, because it makes you happy to do something for them. So this week, I'm going to challenge you guys and myself. If you find that there's something you're doing, that you're gritting your teeth through, that you're resenting, that you're feeling like you catch yourself thinking, I'm doing this because I feel like I have to make somebody else happy, versus I'm doing this because I want to do something for somebody else or for myself or whatever it is, to stop that and try to stop yourself in your thoughts and practice letting some of it go. I find myself a lot of times when the kids say they need something, need help with like buttoning something, or need help with picking up something or getting water, I will immediately jump up to go help with that. When it's not an emergency. And I'll find myself sighing as I do it, like, okay, let me put down what I'm doing and come get you a glass of water, or come button your pants, or whatever it is that needs to be done. And this past week, I've tried to really go, you know, they don't need me to jump up the second that they say something. I mean, I have to wait sometimes when I ask somebody for something, or when you go somewhere and you're waiting on somebody to help you. Waiting is part of life, and I'm not saying that I make them wait like 10 minutes or something, but what I've tried to do is just say, hang on one second, let me finish what I'm doing, and I'll get to a reasonable stopping point. You know, if I'm in the middle of sending an email, or if I'm in the middle of washing dishes or whatever it may be, I'll finish washing what I'm washing, dry it off, and then come help them. Or I'll say, hey, come over here and I'll button your pants. Or I'll say, why don't you go grab a cup for me and bring it to me, and then I'll get you some water. Not only is that teaching them some independence and responsibility, but it's also teaching them that other people have priorities and they have to be patient and wait sometimes. So there's your challenge for the week. Leave me a comment below and let me know if this is something that you struggle with, if this is something you've struggled with as you've been trying to set your boundaries. Let me know if successes that you've had in setting boundaries and how that's made you feel. I really want you guys to feel the sense of freedom and release and happiness that comes from doing the things that you need to do in your life for yourself, not doing them because you think somebody else is going to feel bad if you don't, or because you think you have to do something for somebody else. That is so often not the case. Try to let yourself do some things that you enjoy. Make time for yourselves. It is hugely important in order to be able to take care of somebody else. We don't have to go through our lives feeling guilty. We don't have to go through our lives feeling responsible for changing other people's behaviors, other people's feelings, other people's thought patterns. Not our responsibility. Everybody, let's work on our own thoughts, our own responsibilities, our own guilt. Let's work on that this week. I will see you guys Sunday night for a live stream. It will be around 9 o'clock Central Time. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all the places to find out exactly what the time will be. I will be answering your questions and discussing some of your thoughts on all of this. I'm so looking forward to it. Hope you guys are having a great week. I'll see you next time. Bye.